As rents across the country rise due to inflation and a shortage of affordable housing, local and state lawmakers are looking to rent control, obviously. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have a few interesting articles for you today, and they're all around the same topic. It's rent control. Okay, rent control it's the next hot topic right now for landlords, as all these local lawmakers throughout the entire country are starting to look at these rent control policies as the solution to rising rents. And they think that this is the thing that they need to do in order to make housing more affordable, not realizing that, hey, the reason the rents are going up has to do with just this huge amount of inflation that's going on throughout the country. Everything is getting more expensive. Gas prices are going up. Inflation was at the highest level in 40 years. And they still think that landlords shouldn't have to or be able to raise their rents. I mean, they're out of their minds, okay? So obviously, instead of saying, hey, let's find the solution, let's figure out what's going on where, this inflation is happening, they're saying, okay, well, we want to artificially put price controls onto this item here. Now, they don't do this with anything else. You notice that, right? They don't go down to the gas station and say, well, gas is only $1 a gallon now. No. They let the market dictate the cost of gas, whether it's expensive or not, okay? And that's the same thing they should be doing with real estate and with rental properties and with rents, right? But they're not. They're trying to put these price controls on there, and it's creating all new problems. And price controls, anyway, the only thing they are socialist policies that are put into place that will basically lead our system into socialism, and I'm 100% opposed to that. So yeah, I'm looking out for all of this nonsense that's happening, and some of it's happening in Arizona, where I used to invest. I used to own property in Tucson and Phoenix, so I sold those properties a couple of years ago, but I'm glad that I did at this point. I made a huge profit off of them, and if they do decide to impose rent control policies there, that would be very, very bad for the landlords there. Now, before I get into the articles, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. Do you think that rent control is the biggest, threat to landlords throughout the country right now? Now, obviously, there's a lot of threats to landlords going on, good cause eviction policies. Hell, there's still some people suffering under eviction moratoriums right now. But I think that rent control, especially as prices rise, as inflation gets worse, is going to become a hot topic all over the country. I already see it up in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Minneapolis and the Twin Cities, right? They're already spreading this stuff into the Midwest, where there aren't really policies in place. Now, fortunately, in the case of like Arizona, they actually have laws on hand that say, hey, local governments cannot impose rent control policies. That can only be done at the state level. They were smart, and they put that law in place years ago, before this was an issue. Okay, so the first article I have today, it's coming from globestreet.com, and it says, rent control measures a top priority for local lawmakers. All right, let's get into it. Lawmakers across the U.S. are targeting skyrocketing home rental prices with rent control measures last seen during the inflationary spiral of the 1970s, which also was the last time the annual inflation rate exceeded its current level of 7.9%. Legislation has been proposed at the city or state level in every region that would establish caps for rent increases, with the cap proposals ranging from 2% to 10%, according to a report this week in the Wall Street Journal. Redfin estimates that home rental prices have increased an average of 18% across the U.S. during the past 2 years, hitting record levels, with some cities reporting rent hikes of 30%. And as I've mentioned before, there are good reasons why the costs have gone up so much. And, part of it is the 7.9% inflation that they just mentioned a little bit earlier. Everything is more expensive. Our utilities, our property taxes, our maintenance, everything costs more than it did last year. Not only that, but a lot of landlords also suffered huge amount of losses due to the fact that they had tenants in their units that weren't paying rent during the eviction moratoriums, and they did not get reimbursed with the rental assistance that was promised to them. Okay, so they are just trying to get back on their feet. So when you're talking about landlords who are raising rents, that is a huge factor right there. Plus, I have to say this, right? Landlords need to raise their rents up to market levels right now, because there might not be an opportunity to do that in the future, especially if they start imposing these rent control policies. But, let's say next year inflation is gone, right? Well, at least we were able to get our rents up for a while and be able to collect some money. See, everybody thinks, oh, well, you're making this huge profit. They have no clue what the profit most landlords are making is. Okay, unless they are the ones buying the property and doing the books and the accounting, they have no clue what the profit margin for most landlords is. Okay, most of us have loans on our properties that have to be paid back. So if you're talking about a landlord, let's say, and we'll use Arizona as an example, and you're buying yourself a fourplex in Arizona, which nowadays can cost you $500,000 or more. Okay, so you spend $500,000 on this fourplex, whereas the person you bought it from only spent $200,000 on it. Well, your mortgage payment is going to be a lot higher than the mortgage payment for the person who paid $200,000. I mean, it's obvious you paid more than double what they paid. So let's just pretend that your mortgage payment is double. They were paying $1,000 a month and you're paying $2,000 a month. Well, the only way that you can make money off of that property now is by having a corresponding rent increase. Okay. So if you don't raise the rents in that property, then you won't be able to pay your mortgage. And if you can't pay your mortgage, then you're going to lose the property. So that is part of the reason. When you have an exchange of properties, the new basis of the cost basis is what it just sold for, not what the tenants were paying with the old, with the old landlord who bought it 10 years ago. That's irrelevant. Okay. So as that article was saying, rent prices are increasing all throughout the country. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people, they cannot afford the rent increases. But the good news is that, on the bottom end especially, there have been corresponding pay increases, okay? So a lot of states, and especially like even here in Nebraska, you are seeing that entry-level, no-skill jobs are starting at $15 an hour, which is way above the minimum wage. Okay, so if the people on the lowest levels are getting paid higher, that means that affordability is going to be less of an issue, especially as the rents rise. But anyway, the second article I have today, it's coming from abc15.com, and it says, rent control in Arizona, laws that would limit rent increases. So yeah, a proposal was thrown out for rent control in Arizona, and obviously I don't think that's going to pass yet in Arizona, okay? Yeah, the prices have gone up. Yeah, there's been a flood of people from California coming in there, and they're bringing their left-leaning, progressive, anti-landlord ideas with them. But the state of Arizona is still a very conservative place, and they believe in property rights there, okay? And they don't want to be California. So, for now, it's still a good place to invest. It's still a good place to be a landlord. But you have to fight these things now. Okay, but let's get into this article. If you're a renter, you know it's been a tough couple of years. Valley rents increased by 30% in 2021 and are still on pace for similar increases this year. Is it time to consider limiting what landlords can charge? Rent control is a divisive topic with very strong opinions on both sides. State Senator Martin Quezada hopes this year things change. We proposed a bill that would limit the amount of rent increases. Quezada represents the Arizona Legislative District 29. While he says his previous rent control bills have gone nowhere, he hopes this year the timing is right. Well, he's got a better chance this year just because of cost of everything is going up, but I still don't think it's going to pass. Okay, at least not yet. Arizona is not it is a state where they believe in property rights. They are much, much more conservative, and they are not going to want to do something like this. I mean, to me, Arizona is like a real estate place, okay? The whole place is real estate, And so I believe that they believe strongly in property rights there, and they're not going to want something like this to happen to all the landlords. And, it would destroy a huge section of the economy in this state. But let me skip down a little bit in the article and kind of get into the details of this guy's proposal. SB 1587 would cap rent increases yearly at 5% plus the cost of inflation, or 10%, whichever is lower. If the highest you paid for rent in the past 12 months is $1,600, the biggest increase you'd see is $160. See, and that's my problem with a lot of these rent control proposals, right? So they say, oh, we're going to cap the rent increase at 10%. Well, let's say you are the landlord who never raised rent on your tenants, right? So you bought the property 30 years ago, and you've still got your tenants in there paying $500 for their one bedroom unit. Meanwhile, all the rents for the one bedrooms around you are $1,200 a month, right? So you're just like, well, I'm going to raise the rent up to match the same level that all the units around me. No, you can't do that. The most you could raise your rent would be $50. So the most you could charge would be $550 to that tenant. So you've screwed yourself. This is what rent control does. And what would be your motivation then if you could only get an extra $50 a month? What would be your motivation to do improvements and, bring that property up so it's, the most recent, updated, modern looking place? There's zero motivation. So what you end up with is a whole bunch of old, dilapidated, crappy buildings, that haven't been updated in 50 years because there's no reason the landlord should do it if they can't raise the rents and make their money back from their investment. So yeah, rent control policies are going to be proposed throughout the country. They already have been, and we're going to be seeing more and more of this as long as the economy keeps having all this ridiculous inflation. Oh, so watch out, landlords. This stuff is coming.